All right, we're talking about section 5.2, which are rates. A ratio from 5.1 compares two measurements with the same unit. But a lot of things that we compare make us use measurements that have different units. So for example, this one I gave you is 14-mile hike in 4 hours. It's 14 miles to 4 hours. So the comparison is between miles and hours, but those don't cancel. And so we are now into a different type of comparison called rates rather than the ratios that we first started on in 5.1. What I want to point out on this screen is that this word in is different than that word to from 5.1, right? To compares two things that have the same units. But here we're finding that there are several words listed here at the bottom. The words in, for, on, per, or from. These 5 words are what show us that we're comparing a rate and not a ratio. All right, so here's a tip. When you're writing, sorry, this should be a ratio, or a rate, yeah, that's right. When I'm writing a rate, always include the units, such as miles, hours, dollars, days, anything like that, because the units are not going to cancel. So you want to make sure that we hang on to them so we can make sense of what it is that we're still comparing or what we're working with. So this one's 5 gallons of chemicals for $60. So here's our word, for. So it's comparing this thing to this thing. Again, they're still from left to right. The first thing that you see goes on top, over, and this one's $60. The dollar sign is in front of it, but we're going to write it out for us to see it. So 5 gallons to $60. This one simplifies, and for us to be able to simplify, we would divide both the top and bottom by the same number, and in this case 5 goes into both of them. And so I end up with, for every 1 gallon of gas, 5 goes into 60 12 times, cost me $12. Not a good ratio, but it's chemicals, not gas, that we're typically used to seeing. So for every 1 gallon of chemicals, it's going to cost $12. Okay. This one's, you made $1,500 in wages in, here's your word, 10 weeks. So $1,500, 10 weeks. We're always going to simplify where we can. This one's going to be divided by 10 on top and bottom. Has to be the same number both places for this to simplify. And so we get $150 in 1 week. And this leads us into our unit rate. And a unit rate means that the denominator is going to have a single unit, meaning 1. And so the way that we write those out is $150 per week. So you will always use per when you're using a denominator with a single unit, which is called a unit rate. Okay, unit rate because 1 is in the denominator. So this is what I just explained to you. So a lot of times it has to do with papers per hour or building of tricycles in a work day or something like that. But this one right here is typical. You earn $12.75 for 1 hour of work, and so that's $12.75 per hour. So we use per when we're writing a unit rate. All right, so this one is our first comparison, and they want us to write this in a unit rate. So the first thing that we do is we set it up. So the first thing that we come to becomes our numerator. Remember, we have to include the labels or the units because they are not going to cancel out. So I have 337.5 miles to 13.5 gallons or 13.5 gallons. All right, so how do I get the denominator to be 1? Well, I will divide by whatever my denominator is. Since I do that on the bottom, I have to do the same thing on the top because that's how we simplify. And we'll do this even if that makes the numerator or the top number become a fraction or a decimal even. We will do that to find our unit rate. And so in this case, 13.5 goes into 13.5 and leaves me with 1 gallon. And the top, the 337.5 miles divided by 13.5 gives me 25 miles. So what did I find? I found 25 miles per gallon. Per has to be used when we're doing a unit rate. Final answer.